So very warm welcome from my side to this session where I'll compare Focus Build with SAP Cloud ALM. Before doing that, I'm introducing myself a little bit. So I'm product manager for SAP Solution Manager since 20 years or more than 20 years, so since the very beginning. As well with Focus Build since the very beginning, and since more than 1 year now I'm supporting the SAP Cloud ALM product management in defining the end-to-end process. Coming to the content of this session, you see both are very interesting topics, Focus Build and SAP Cloud ALM. And the question is now, assume you plan to do an implementation project. What is the right platform to choose? Is it SAP Cloud ALM or is it Focus Build? And based on my experience, I'll give you some ideas how you come to the right conclusion. But before coming to that, please note this little disclaimer. So, of course, this information of the presentation is confidential and proprietary to SAP. And especially all forward-looking statements are, for instance, development planning topics, which I'll explain at the end of these sessions, are subject or might be subject to change. Okay. But before we start with this comparison, let's quickly summarize on a high level the transition strategy from SAP Solution Manager to SAP Cloud ALM. So to be crystal clear, SAP Cloud ALM is the go-to platform for all new customers and all Solution Manager customers. No doubt about that. So SAP Cloud ALM is the future. And as well, SAP Cloud ALM is designed to be sufficient for the vast majority of all customers. So it should fit to most of the current SAP Solution Manager customers as well. And what SAP Cloud ALM is already offering is that it is a very good solution for fast-paced cloud implementation. So for standard implementations of, let's say, Ariba, SuccessFactors, S4HANA, and so on. Also, this functionality is already there. And second cornerstone to note is as well, if you are currently already using SAP Solution Manager or Focus Build to implement your SAP S4HANA project, then you shouldn't change. So don't change a horse during the race. So finalize your project with the already known project implementation functionality, which is potentially Focus Build or Solution Manager, and use SAP Cloud ALM more for the future projects. Okay, looking at the cornerstones, now the challenge for you is when to adapt to SAP Cloud ALM. So when is the right point in time to use SAP Cloud ALM, and how long, for which projects should I still use SAP Solution Manager or Focus Build? And this question I like to answer with the following points. So I start with comparison of several topics. So I compare the basic architecture, the basic capability of Focus Build, SAP Cloud ALM. I compare the standard workflow. Then I have a look at the currently available functionality. And then we will see, okay, in SAP SAP Cloud ALM, there are still the one or other gaps. And then in the next point, I explain, okay, when do we plan to close those gaps? And based on that, I give some recommendations for the let's say, 5 standard use cases when to use our project implementation functionality. Okay, let's start with the first point, the comparison of the basic architecture. So it's good to realize, okay, what was the root cause why Focus Build has been developed. So please note, in the future or in the rest of this presentation, I'm not talking about anymore of SAP Solution Manager. I'm just talking about Focus Build because this is the current state-of-the-art functionality, how to use SAP Solution Manager for implementation projects. So first point, what we should consider and remember is, why was Focus Build developed? It was developed because Solution Manager is based on an on-premise CRM platform, but it contains a lot of or several different platforms. So it's not only CRM, it includes as well Knowledge Warehouse, cPro, so project management, test workbench, solution documentation. And so we have different SAP products combined in one big platform. And as this is an on-premise platform, of course, we need to update this functionality with the help of support packages. So typically we had 2 support packages per year. And of course, this caused regular update effort and as well implementation effort. And as said, as we have dealt with different solutions which we combined in the Solution Manager, we had to deal with different UI technologies. But we overcame this UI problem by introducing the Fiori-like UI5 UIs with Focus Build. So we harmonized all those UIs so that it was now much more convenient for the end users to use Solution Manager. Okay, in comparison to this on-premise system, which you need to run by yourself, causing implementation effort, we have now on the other side SAP Cloud ALM. So, and this is a totally different architecture. So it's based on cloud native, on microservices, so state of the art, and allowing daily deployments. So the keyword here is deploy with confidence. We have separate recordings explaining what's meant with this technology in detail. This allows us bi-weekly delivery of new features. We have no update effort, so it's coming automatically for immediate consumption. And as everything is developed newly from scratch, we have as well a consistent UX UI technology. Everything in one shape. So that's the basic architectonical difference. On the one hand, and quite expensive, but flexible on-premise platform run by you, by the customers themselves. And on the other hand, SAP Cloud platform run by SAP with automated updates. Okay, coming to the comparison of the basic capabilities. So I analyze now the basic capabilities on a very high level. We go later in this presentation, we go more and more in the details, but now we start on a very high level and check, okay, what are the capabilities? How do we design on a high level, how do we support on high level the design phase, build phase, test phase, deploy phase of a project. So in the design phase, for instance, onboarding, fit to standard workshops, in the build phase, the project management, the project execution. In the test phase, what do we offer for test orchestration and test executions? And in the deploy phase, the change enablement and the deployment orchestration. To be more precise, potentially you know already those high-level architecture slides, but now I harmonized here the look and feel so that we can more easily compare those capabilities. So let's start with SAP Cloud ALM. So on a high level, we can say, good for the design phase here in this yellow part here. We have process management, we have predefined solution processes, we have best practices, which we can easily select. We can draw comments to those processes, and supporting now the product implementation, we have SAP Activate with predefined tasks. And as we do standard implementation in the SAP Cloud ALM area, we can predefine those template tasks very good, because standard implementation means every customer has the same task, so we can easily predefine. When we come to the build phase, then we have not only those predefined tasks, which we can use to organize our project, but we have as well the possibility to define requirements, user stories, subtasks, to give or to document technology-oriented, IT-related needs and requirements. You don't need to use those functionalities, but you can. Then as well, we have test management, test cases included, and we have as well high-level change and deployment management, which are represented especially by this functionality or task type features. To control these deployments, we now have as well releases and deployment plans. So we have some change functionality included in SAP Cloud ALM as well. And we have as well a very strong analytics and traceability functionality to track and plan the project progress. So let's have a look what's in Focus Build. How is here the basic architecture looking like? So, and you see it from the first glimpse. From the high-level capabilities, it's looking quite similar. So we have as well process and application landscape. Okay, we have a stronger document management here. Requirements, work package, work items. So the build functionality is quite similar. We have as well a quite extensive test functionality. So as well with test case, documentation capabilities. Then we have as well an included project management, but here the project management is less used in detailed like the task management in SAP Cloud ALM. It's more to populate data for the requirements, work packages, and work items. So it's more to give the pace on or to define the agility of the implementation project. So to define the duration of waves and sprints. Then we have a quite extensive release management and change control management. And as well, we have very nice reporting functionalities, which has been recently brought to the newest standard. So we updated renewed completely the release management dashboard, the test management dashboard, and with the current support package as well, the solution readiness dashboard. So state-of-the-art dashboards here as well. So on a high level, you can say, okay, that SAP Cloud ALM offers equivalent capabilities like SAP Focus Build. So let's have a closer look on the functionality. Here I start with a comparison of the standard workflow. On a high level, you can see SAP Cloud ALM Focus Build looks again quite similar. So in SAP Cloud ALM, if we have a look at the full capability workflow, so meaning we use requirements, we call that requirement-driven standard workflow. So you can start with defining requirements, you can define user stories, you can define features to control here the deployment. We have testing functionalities, and we support a 3-system landscape. So what we should note here is those solid arrows. What does it mean? Those solid arrows here mean that all those status in these workflows are set manually. So there are no predefined constraints. So meaning every user can set every status all the time in this workflow. That means I'm super flexible. The capability is easy to use because I don't need to have any background knowledge. And to control that everything is correct, we have this mighty reporting in the background. But all is done manually and is super flexible. And you see, it's looking quite simple. And in fact, it is. Approval process here is optional, so you can easily decide if to use or not to use approvals to keep it even more simple. And if you like, you can as well skip the requirements or user stories, so there's no need to use all the functionalities. As said, full flexibility. In comparison to that, if we have now a look at Focus Build on the first glimpse, the high-level workflow is looking quite similar. Okay, standard is here that we support a 4-system landscape for good reasons, because to have an good integration test or separate integration test on our reproduction system. But on the high-level workflow is looking quite similar. A little bit more complex, yes. For instance, here with the separations of the testing functionalities. But important to realize is here that we have a lot of automated document actualization. So we have, if we are in a work package and switch status from created to scoping, we have an automated update of the linked requirements to the next status as well. So there are a lot of predefined constraints and automated document updates, which ease the work for the end user if you understood this underlying project methodology. But this methodology you need to be aware of. But if you understood that and if you are trained correctly, this not only eases the workflow because everybody, because it's all the time the same. But there are also a lot of embedded checks, so you can't do wrong. So if I'm here as developer without knowing the project methodology in detail, I can't do errors because there are checks which hinder me to set the wrong status or to miss attachment of necessary documents and so on and so forth. But it's not only those automated updates of the documents and included checks and error messages, meaningful error messages, and so on. But it's as well that if we have a closer look at this workflow, this was only the high level. Based on our 10 years experience in our product management for Focus Build, or let's say 10 years defining best practice, we defined very, very detailed workflows, which are not only on that high level, but if you have a closer look, you see, for the work items, there are many more status. And in fact, for more complex projects, those detailed workflows are really needed. And if we have a look at the test management, very complex topic because of those different tests based on different underlying systems and with parallel development, this is even more complex. And everything is predefined with automated document updates, constraints, and checks. So it's a very detailed workflow, predefined workflow. So this is the difference. So the SAP Cloud ALM workflow is simple and flexible, and the Focus Build workflow is very detailed, pre-configured, and with automated document updates. Okay, so that's about the workflow comparison. Let's have now a look at the functionality. So on a high level, the general advantages of SAP Cloud ALM are is a quick start. So you can directly out of the box run your system. We have no maintenance and operation costs, so we have lower total cost of ownership. We have intuitive usability based on the newest UI technology. It's fully agile, as said. Each end user can do all workflow settings, not workflow, so status settings, and fully agile as well means we support continuous deployment. We have the full flexibility, and in comparison to that, we have, as said in Focus Build, the predefined processes, which are detailed and stiff. So no adjustment. By that, you have the full control and the strict process governance, which is helpful in complex projects. And it's an efficient rollout to or allows an efficient rollout to the project team because we have this standardized, predefined training curriculum. SAP Cloud ALM, you have the full flexibility, but that means you need as well to find your own way in this project. And in Focus Build, everything is predefined, and therefore we can as well offer this predefined training functionality. Let's have a look at the advantages of each capability. So in SAP Cloud ALM, we have a very efficient project task distribution. As said, standard implementation, therefore we have very nice template tasks. We have the integration in CBC, so the central business configuration, as well allowing here task distribution and efficient working on those template tasks. We have a very good task tracking. And we have a very flexible built-in real-time analytics and traceability of all entities. So the reporting and traceability functionality is excellent in SAP Cloud ALM. What we need, because we have this flexibility and that the end user can, all end users can, are allowed to set status. So therefore, you need to trace and control a little bit more, but this is no problem because of this very good functionality, reporting functionality. And last general advantage is that we are, this can be as well an advantage that you are very flexible in the release definition. So you can decide if you want to work with or without parallel releases. So you can really work fully flexible with daily deployments. So, and fully agile. In SAP Focus Build, the advantage is that we have a very sophisticated document management. So remember this branch concept with different staging areas and KPIs you can define for each document type. And as well, we have a very sophisticated test organization with integrated test plans and assignment analysis, business process change analyzer, and so on. We have a fully integration correction process. So I'm thinking about now something like defect and defect corrections, which ensure the stability and the completeness of the complete release, not only single functionalities, but the complete release. And we have a full change control integrated with change request management. So the excellent governance. And so we have as well those import procedures. So batch import, which is time saving and minimizing the risk of implementing transports, bunch of transports in, for instance, pre-production and production system. Okay, so in a summary, we can say currently the major strength of SAP Cloud ALM is that we have excellent task management. So for the project, we have a very efficient project organization and an outstanding analytics. And in Focus Build, major advantages are currently this sophisticated document management, test planning, and change control management. This offers much more, all those areas offer much more functionality than SAP Cloud ALM today. Okay, but in the first slide, I showed, okay, SAP Cloud ALM should be the platform for all customers. So that means that we need to close those gaps in the future. And in another session recorded by Michael Kleffer, you will get an overview of all those planned functionalities. And we have here short-term, mid-term, and long-term functionalities planned. So as said, this is the current state of the planning might change in future, but I'll have a closer look now on the near and midterm developments, so meaning in the next few months up to the end of this year. So these are the planned functionalities. Coming next, I sorted it in the three major areas, which I've shown on the previous slide. So document management, test management, change control management. And I sorted those planned functionality in the sequence of the planned realization. So in document and process management, I think we already deployed those scope APIs. So and standard content API, custom project APIs, which are needed to bring information and data from your current solution manager into SAP Cloud ALM. That's the background of the development of those API to smooth the transition. Then what we as well plan to deliver this year is a process hierarchy. So like this process hierarchy, which we know from Focus Build. So folder structure, you can say, where to assign your processes and documents to. And potentially as well executables and so on. So process hierarchy is coming quite soon. And then we started to as well offer a more sophisticated customer documentation. So starting with an extended note functionality, but we plan to offer some kind of document management in future as well. So these are the gaps we plan to close in the document and process management. In the test management, we plan to finish our test automation integration. So for instance, to integrate Tricentis. And then after that, we'll offer tester team assignment and as well start try to offer, I think current plan is mid of this year, to offer as well test plans. The change management, we next development is to offer this import scheduler, phase cycles, we have some workflow adjustments, which is already shipped here for the feature. We have an additional status, which has been shipped in end of December already. And we have some security functionalities like transport of copies or downgrade protection. So the goal is that SAP Cloud ALM offers up until end of this year and at least on a medium high level, same end-to-end process functionalities like Focus Build. And there are other sections which are our sessions, which where recordings are done. So those are mentioned here. So if you want to have more details about those developments, have a look at those recordings here. Okay, coming to the recommendations. So based on those considerations now, when to use Focus Build and when to use SAP Cloud ALM for your implementation project now. So I have here 5 typical use cases. The first one is quite simple. So you haven't used Focus Build so far because it seemed too complex, because I'm rather a smaller mid-sized customer with a less complex implementation project. Focus Build was too inflexible for me. So for those customers where Solution Manager and Focus Build was too complex, too expensive. Of course, our recommendation is, hey, have a look at SAP Cloud ALM, which is quite simple to use, no operations cost, and right there out of the box without the need of implementing an own system. Quite similar is the use case. Okay, if you want to implement now an SAP functionality, potentially in the context of RISE, so with standard cloud products, then of course SAP Cloud ALM is as well the first platform you should evaluate, because it's not meaningful to have to use software which is operated by SAP and to use then an implementation platform which is on-premise, so operated by you. So that is not really meaningful, obviously. So implement cloud products with a cloud platform. In case you already use Solution Manager or Focus Build, then it's now the time to check, potentially I can save those operations costs. Potentially SAP Cloud ALM is already ripe enough, and therefore you should use our readiness check to check if SAP Cloud ALM already offers all needed functionality for your planned or for your next implementation projects. And if in case you still stick to Focus Build or Solution Manager because of functional reasons, because SAP Cloud ALM is not ripe enough, so readiness check tells you, okay, currently I'm using this and this and this functionality with Focus Build, and which is not fully there right now, then you should regularly check our Roadmap Explorer, because we have a lot of new functionalities in coming every 2 weeks. So we have very rapid deployment in SAP Cloud ALM. So it's really worth to regularly check how SAP Cloud ALM develops. And another valid options, especially for bigger customers which run several projects in parallel, they can think about if they want to run their bigger implementation project still with Focus Build, and for instance, some smaller build projects with SAP Cloud ALM. So it's very often the case, for instance, for some smaller FI projects, you can use already SAP Cloud ALM because you have smaller implementation teams. But for the other bigger implementation teams, like for logistics, which is typically more complex, you still run the Focus Build functionality. So these are 5 typical use cases. And before I close this session, I want to give you as well some, let's say, my personal opinion when to use SAP Cloud ALM and Focus Build. So beside the consideration of those 5 use cases, you can as well have a look at, okay, well, let's phrase it like that. You see, if you have now really a complex implementation tool, then you have the choice between the future SAP Cloud ALM, which has already some very good functionalities, but which is still at the start. For instance, in the change request management, we will need 2-3 years minimum to get here, let's say, to the 80-90% level what we already have in focus build. So yes, for easy deployment use cases, it's ripe enough, but not for super complex projects. Here we will honestly need 1-3 years to come to an 80-90% level what we have already in focus build, because focus build is, let's say, based on this currently or on the last architecture. It's fully ripe. It's fully development. We have with support package 11, we now even support the enhanced phase. So we support all project phases, even after go live. And so this development, in fact, needed about 8 years. And SAP Cloud ALM, we are now developing since 2-3 years. So you see, we still need some years to come to this complete ripeness with SAP Cloud ALM. And if you are now, if you have, there are big customers, car manufacturers, for instance, in Germany, which already introduced focus build since 4-5 years. And of course, they will run still the next years, they will continue with using focus build. So I would say with focus build, we are now on the top of the wave, and and so many customers will still use focus build for the next years. And yeah, so as a conclusion, you can say both functionalities are valid. SAP Cloud ALM for the simple projects right now. Have a look how it is developing in the future. But to get this complete functionality of focus build, we will need 2-3 years minimum. And yeah, but it's the future. Okay, so let's conclude with these words, with these private statements.